Thank you. Mega Comp question number 4 coming up after this week's Animals of Farthing Wood.
Oh yes, the Animals of Farthing Wood. It was a TV series I remember very fondly coming home from school to watch, getting my weekly dose of serialised animal animated drama. The show revolved around a group of animals who inhabited Farthing Wood, a wood that was in danger of being destroyed by the almighty god of cement mixers. So as the animals' habitats are destroyed, the animals get together and set about on a journey to a new home. And what an experience this show was! I waited week by week for each episode to see what dangers the gang of animals would escape from. It certainly had its fair share of nail-biting, tense scenes, harrowing emotional moments, and there was also plenty of times where I had to give great sighs of relief when they made it through all the dangers they encountered.
Come on everybody, let's get out of here!
And not forgetting I was about 4 or 5 at the time of the original release.
So this was the first time I experienced anything like this.
That's right, I loved this show when it first came out. The characters, the story, the struggle to make the journey to a new habitat where they would be safe had me absolutely gripped. It was probably my first animal-based TV show and or serialised programme I remember watching. And guess what? As in production of this video, it is now the animated show's 26th anniversary! Hooray! Hooray! Or 27th, 28th or 29th, whatever anniversary depending which year you're watching this video in. So join me, the Blue Artisan, as today I celebrate by looking back at the lasting legacy of the first season of the Animals of Farthing Wood animated series. The Animals of Farthing Wood started off as a series of novels released back in 1978. It was written by author Colin Dan, and the first book was entitled, wait for it, The Animals of Farthing Wood. Following on from that first book, it expanded into a collection of novels that continued the animal stories into 8 other books. And it was only a matter of time before it was eventually commissioned from book to film in the early 90s by the European Broadcasting Union. The television series animation was joint produced and animated by London animation studio Téléimagination, and its partner in France by animation studio La Fabrique in Montpellier. So hence why you can see 1 or 2 inconsistencies and different styles of animation between each episode, as each studio tackled the animation themselves, giving it their own flair. The series was taken on in the UK and broadcast by CBBC. Now upon researching and reading the books, there are of course a few differences between the formats, and I have to say that usually the changes from book to film don't work very well. I admit this is one of the rare examples from book to TV series where the changes and differences made to translate the series to the screen are actually better choices than the books. Yes, I know it sounds bizarre, but the way they handled the source material and respected it in a way that made sense for children like me at the time, these changes were understandable. So what did they change? The major changes in fact come from the gender differences and characterizations of certain key characters in the series. Weasel, Owl, Kestrel and Adder were in fact male in the books, whereas in the TV show they were all female. I believe this was done to bring a bit more female representation, as it was very male heavy in the books. It's only fair to have a more gender balanced representation. Gender changes aside, the personalities were all intact, apart from one certain character. Weasel.
Rice off a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Wrong goes the weasel.
You see, Weasel in the books was more of a central and wiser character who often helped Fox and Badger and Company in consulting with problems. If you know the TV series, then yeah, Weasel was.
Did I hear someone calling for an encore?
No!
Oh well, if you insist.
And finally, the only other real change, well, more of a slight animation error really, is the fact that Kestrel was drawn and painted with markings of a male Kestrel in the TV series, but they decided to make her female, I think, in the last moment in this case. Now in all, while the book and TV series deals with some adult themes of death, along with the elements of dangers that the animals are subjected to on their journey to safety, it didn't dumb down the subject and the themes Farthing Wood dealt with, as it was very faithful and true to the original source material, and did the book justice. And on Wednesday, January the 6th, 1993, it was broadcast on CBBC. Hooray!
Feeling down, get off the ground, turn on your TV. Wacky, funky, fun to watch, children's BBC.
Warning, spoilers ahead. The plot of the first book and indeed series was a simple narrative. The animals' home of Farthing Wood is being cut down, thus endangering the natives' lives by having their homes destroyed. The animals assess how dire their situation has become and decide that enough is enough and call for a group meeting and band together before everyone's home is gone.
Looks like we've got a bit of a problem.
And a major one at that.
Important enough to warrant an assembly, I reckon.
So animals, prey and predator alike join for an assembly to discuss how to get out of the situation. Toad, whom was making his way home before being buried by a digger.
Longer, I'll soon be home and dry.
That sound clip always got me. Toad remembers he came from being captured at a nature reserve named, what was it called, Toad?
They calls it White Deer Park.
With everyone deciding the only viable option is to make a new home in a new protected park, they decide that they want to make their way there.
We're going to White Deer Park.
Hare, however, asks a very obvious question.
You mean vegetarians like us, alongside our natural enemies? The carnivores?
Badger recalls an ancient woodland vow, an oath of mutual protection as it were.
Oath of mutual protection?
It's a promise not to
Frighten?
Terrorize nor consume one another.
So after swearing the oath, it's decided that the animals shall embark on a journey full of dangers and peril. A journey where not all may survive.
Want to take bets on it?
Yeah, that's right. I want 2 tenors on the pheasants, £5 each on the newts, and £20 on each hedgehog too. Oops. Public message. Blue Artisan does not endorse gambling. He thinks it's wrong. It's great looking back at the first episode, as you can see how the oath changes the characters, and a rousing spirit of camaraderie grows every episode. You feel this even more so as they make their way through one danger to another, with the amplified music certainly made for a traumatic viewing experience. Some of the scenes that got me was the frightening way the rubbish floating in the river nearly killed Fox and Badger. And don't get me started on that whole fox hunting experience. Cool, that put me off that wretched sport altogether, as I really felt for poor Fox and Vixen in that episode. Now, you can't really mention a traumatic viewing experience without the one that Animals of Farthing Wood is most famous for. Yep, that's right, it's that certain scene. Poor baby mice impaled on bushes on television as I was eating me fish fingers and beans. It's the one scene that everyone remembers and brings up when they talk about the show. It certainly was one we discussed on the playground the next day. Well, it was my first experience of animated blood and children's media when we were tiny. Well, aside from that harrowing trauma, there were happy moments too, as old friends were lost, new ones were made along the way, and some rather funny predicaments occurred. I'm fond of the wedding fiasco myself. Throughout the many hardships and losses, they made it through together to the safe haven. And everyone can breathe a huge sigh of relief, as now they are safe, and the journey is over, which in itself made for an exciting tale of danger, courage, and adversity for those who made it. And they can all rest easy and begin a new chapter in the animals' lives. No story would be complete without having a good cast of characters whom you care for, and there's quite a fair few in this troop of animals. Now, Fox was the smart, clever one, the true leader, and exactly what you expect a fox to be, and it's great to know that through the animal's journey, he becomes a fox of great legend, the legendary Fox of Farthing Wood. That log looks like it would be great to stand on and pose for a cool intro.
Who's a hero then?
Badger is the second in command, and then Vixen arrives and becomes another part of Fox's council for more support. There is also Owl, who offers sage advice and wisdom.
Still, as Confucius say, let's see what tomorrow brings.
Just who is this Confucius person, and why does he say such things? And not forgetting the scout of the group, Kestrel. And Mole, he's the emotional one. You have some annoying characters like Rabbit, whom I dislike the most, that are part of the troop too.
Save me!
There's a multitude of minor characters as well that all have a part to play in this story. This also includes the Arthur Scargill-like Mr. Vole, and his somewhat very annoying mother, Mrs. Vole.
What's he going on about?
I said you're very annoying.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying.
Now what's really remarkable is the excellent performance of the vocal cast. They're all very well suited for each part they play. You have Rupert Farley as Fox, Jeremy Barret played Mole, Stacey Jefferson as Ada, as well as Sally Grace providing the role of Owl. Saving the best for last, we had the late great Ron Moody, who voiced Badger. For those not in the know, Ron Moody is most famous for his portrayal of Fagin in the Oliver Twist musical.
What a crook, gave away what he took. Charity's fine, subscribe to mine.
Shut up and drink your gin!
No, Artisan does not endorse drinking.
Of course they all recycled the voice actors, playing more than just one part. I mean, Stacey Jefferson also played Kestrel. However, they're so good at playing each role that you can't really tell it's the same voice actor playing them. It took me a while to find out that Rupert Farley played Pheasant too.
Right, dear.
I'll never be able to turn my back on anyone again.
The character I like the most is Ada.
Did someone mention moi?
She's cold, yet cool, and helps the group in plenty of situations. She just doesn't want to ruin that snake-like reputation of hers.
I'll never live this down.
You can tell the animators had a lot of fun animating her too, which brings me on to the next part. Now, as the series was animated by 2 studios, you can clearly see a different variation of animated techniques and styles from each episode. The episodes are all hand-drawn in traditional animated fashion, making for an incredible animated 2D performance. Some episodes showcases some stronger animation than others. Take episode 12 for example. That particular one has some very strong animated performances and keyframes.
Then you shouldn't have stepped on me. You'll get bad luck. Not me. I'm the luckiest weasel in the whole wide world. The luckiest weasel.
It would be amiss of me not to mention the luscious looking watercolour backgrounds. They're beautiful. And complementing the beautiful animation is the remarkable use of music. The music is fantastic. Why, even its theme tune itself is captivating and dramatic, charming and overall truly endearing. I like how there's a different instrument used for each animal, thus getting their own representation in the grandiose theme tune. Little xylophone playing for the mice and smaller creatures, and fluty notes for the birds. It's overall wonderful. It's a fantastic orchestral piece that has a great feeling of triumph as they make it through all the dangers they encounter. I believe the intro was recorded in London, but the outro, the ending theme itself, was recorded live by the WDR Orchestra in Germany. I happened upon this information from a YouTuber who uploaded this info and soundtrack. He or she goes by the name of MKtheinstumentlaist. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out and say thank you, as he or she seems to be the only person that's ever compiled the soundtrack to the series. The music itself is beautiful and captures the truly heartbreaking and tender moments of the series. That's sure to start the tears welling up. Yes, the music certainly captured those heartbreaking moments, making them feel more emotional and tender. This allowed for more traumatic weight in the death scenes of certain animals in some episodes. Speaking of death scenes, it's time to talk about the main thing that people remember Animals of Farthing Wood for. That's right folks, we're going to be discussing the deaths in the show. Yes, the Animals of Farthing Wood certainly had its fair share of death every couple of episodes or so. It's not until at least 3 episodes in that one of the members of the group is killed, that being the Newts who died in the fire. That death happened off screen and was never really confirmed, only ever implied.
For the Newts, there was no escape.
The first real impactful death, and dare I say the most traumatic one, is in fact the death of Mrs. Pheasant and then Mr. Pheasant. That whole scene was so well done it could win an Oscar.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife, without whom I wouldn't be able to receive this award. Congratulations, dear. Of course, I'd like to thank all the fans of Farthing Wood. You are all so lovely.
Then a few episodes down the line, there's, of course, that scene.
Bird.
Then the baby rabbit died. Well, as sad as it was, at least the whole group of rabbits didn't die. In fact, the next emotional and tear-jerking death was that of the hedgehogs.
I can't.
Please.
Don't curl up.
Please.
The fact that that scene played on how their instincts got the better of them and they were left to their fate, but they went together, which is very touching. Apart from that, most of the group survive, so Colin Dan wasn't exactly swinging his axe around willy-nilly. Well, not so much in the first book anyway. However, both the book and the TV series dealt with the subject matter very well. It was tastefully done and not watering it down for children, showing the harsh reality of the trip. I mean, it would make for a boring story if all the animals made it and no one died. Imagine how dull that would be.
I only wish we could all have made it.
Here, hang on, would you look at that? It's the newts.
We made it out the fire just fine. We hid in the swamp and made it back to you all.
Oh, look, turns out the pheasants made it too.
Yes, it turns out my wife wasn't shot and I missed the gun. Alright, I may have taken some creative liberty there, but you get my point. However, you can really see how well this show was marvellously adapted for television. It didn't mistreat its original source, but handled it with respect. I personally felt for the animals' plight. After all, when this was first broadcast, I just moved into a brand new housing estate that was built on top of an old wood. The estate itself was still being built up, the woods were being torn apart by all these machines, and I had to keep looking up in the sky in case that giant cement mixer might pour down on me. However, the series was directed and made interesting enough for young audiences like myself at the time that I became fully immersed in its narrative, and thus becoming a fully fledged Animals of Farthing Wood fan. It's a series that is indeed timeless. It doesn't have to rely on any pop culture references or make silly jokes that are relevant to today's culture. This lends further strength to the series as it never feels dated. And in fact, I do like to go back and rewatch this series once every 2 years or so. It really is one of the most endearing animated shows I've ever seen.
For I'm proud to be a Farthing Wood traveller, and as for that oath we made, well, we'll keep it among ourselves and amongst our children's children, so that the spirit of this journey will be kept alive forever.